The black ship hunter tore through the upper atmosphere like a blade cutting against the grain of the sky, burning contrails of fire marking its path. Every sensor on Earth screamed at once, registering gravitational distortions, electromagnetic surges, and a low thrumming pulse that rattled glass across entire continents. It was no longer an omen drifting in the void, it was here, descending. Inside command, Lauren's jaw was set tight as screens lit red with cascading alerts. "It's breaching," he muttered under his breath, though no one needed the confirmation. Fiona slammed her hand against a console, her voice sharp and defiant. "They're not even hiding anymore. They want us to see this. They want us to panic." Her anger was almost a shield against the weight pressing on them, but Lauren could see the unease in her eyes. Nico leaned closer to the tactical displays, watching entire defense grids spark to life. He whispered in a tone that carried dread rather than awe, "That isn't just a landing, it's a declaration." His visions, always fractured, always unreliable, swam at the edges of his mind now, shards of futures that might already be unfolding. None of them showed peace. Ada's voice cut across the tension, calm but carrying static distortions, as if something was clawing through her channels. "I have intercepted layered transmissions. The hunter is not acting alone. Alien commands are woven into its descent pattern, adjusting for planetary rotation, population centers, fleet formations. They are treating Earth like a board they have already memorized." Her tone dipped lower, a near whisper, "And they are laughing about it." The ship's shadow grew monstrous as it pierced cloud cover. Civilians across half the world stopped to stare upward, some in horror, some in denial. It was vast, scarred, and armored in ways that no human design had ever dared. Its hull dragged storms in its wake, lightning webbing across its silhouette. As it broke lower, sonic booms shattered windows, toppling weaker structures in coastal cities. The world was no longer watching a war on distant stars, it was watching its predator arrive on their doorstep. "Earth Command just confirmed first impact," a junior officer shouted, his voice cracking. "A coastal defense station, gone, sir, completely vaporized." The words silenced the room. They had trained for this, planned for it, simulated it 1,000 times. But the reality of the hunter burning their planet was a different weight entirely, heavier, more suffocating. Lauren forced his voice steady, rallying those around him even as his own chest tightened. "No panic. We've seen it bleed. We'll make it bleed again." He looked at his team, each one marked by scars from previous encounters. Voss with the quiet intensity of someone who had faced herself in the Shard epic, Nico with the haunted edge of visions, Fiona with fury that cut sharper than any blade, and Ada, the AI, flickering between brilliance and corruption. These were not symbols of despair, they were reminders that humanity had fought this monster before and survived. The black ship hunter shifted, its underbelly glowing with the faint heat of charging weapon banks. A low hum began to ripple across the atmosphere, the kind of sound that wasn't heard with ears but felt in bone. Ada's voice trembled for the first time since her awakening. "This bombardment will not be strategic. It will be psychological. They are choosing targets to break your confidence." The first strikes came in arcs of light that fell faster than anything human eyes could track. Cities lit in white fire, horizons broke with mushrooming clouds of energy. The earth groaned beneath it. Yet, amid the destruction, humanity's defense grid activated with ferocity. Rail platforms on orbit launched tungsten volleys, planetary shields thickened in a lattice, and fighter wings scrambled like swarms of silver sparks rising to meet the shadow. The hunter had landed its message, and now Earth had to answer it. In the silence before the next wave, Lauren said the words everyone was already thinking. "This is not the same war anymore. It's here, and it's only the beginning." The war room smelled faintly of ozone from the static bursts shaking the comm lines. Screens flickered with chaotic feeds, burning skylines, military squadrons scrambling, civilians flooding shelters. The black ship hunter had not even fully engaged yet, but the world was already cracking under its shadow. Lauren leaned both hands on the table, eyes locked on the tactical map. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "We can't scatter our strength. The hunter is landing ground drones while holding orbital superiority. We hit both fronts, we lose both fronts. He paused, his gaze shifting toward the others. We need to pick the fight we can win first. Fiona's head snapped up, her fists clenched so tight her knuckles were white. Win first? You saw what it just did. Half of Europe's defense net is gone. You want us to sit and calculate while cities are being vaporized? We hit it now, all out, before it digs in. Her words carried that same fire she always had, but there was desperation under it this time, the raw fear of watching her world burn in real time. Thomas exhaled sharply, pinching the bridge of his nose. Rushing into that thing is suicide, Fiona. That's what it wants. Look at the bombardment pattern. It's not random. It's designed to provoke exactly what you're arguing for. They're pushing us into rage, into mistakes. He lifted his eyes toward Lauren. We can't play into their hands. We need to understand why the aliens brought the hunter here now. It isn't just conquest. There's intent. Intent. Fiona's laugh was sharp, bitter. Their intent is to wipe us out, Thomas. What more intent do you need? Nico had been quiet, staring at the feeds, his jaw tight. Finally, he spoke, his voice low, the words measured like they cost him something. Both of you are right. They are baiting us, but if we hold back, Earth bleeds out city by city. I've seen pieces of this before. He tapped at the table, zooming in on a cluster of drone deployments. If they secure these zones, they'll choke out supply lines. It's not just destruction. It's occupation. His eyes flicked toward Fiona. If we don't stop that, they don't just kill us, they replace us. The room fell heavy at those words, the possibility too sharp to dismiss. Voss finally broke her silence, her tone quiet but firm. Ada, what are you seeing? The AI's voice answered, carrying that eerie calm threaded with faint distortion. Alien commands continue to ripple through the hunter. Their strategy is layered. Orbital bombardments for fear. Ground deployments for control. Communication patterns for division. A beat of silence, then the unsettling addition. I have found traces of deliberate mocking phrases embedded in the transmissions. They are laughing at your debates in real time. They know you are divided. That was the breaking point. Fiona slammed her hand on the table. So we stop talking and we strike. Lauren raised his head, his voice carrying enough weight to cut through the arguments. No. We're not going to tear each other apart while they watch. That's the game. They think humanity will eat itself before they need to finish us. We won't give them that. His tone hardened, steel layered over exhaustion. We decide and we move together. His gaze swept across them, daring anyone to challenge. Before anyone could answer, the comm officer's voice cracked through the noise, panicked. Urgent transmission from Earth Command. Drone deployments confirmed in New York, Shanghai, and Cairo. Repeat, drones are on the ground. Ground forces are engaging now. The room erupted in overlapping voices, the reality hammering down harder than any debate. Ada's final words cut through the noise, colder than any alarm. This is the beginning of their second phase. Ground war has started. The sky above New York was no longer the color of dawn or dusk. It was a blackened dome pierced by searing white streaks as the hunters' drones descended like burning spears. The city roared with panic, people flooding the bridges, sirens wailing over collapsing buildings, the ground trembling from the impact of every drop. On the command deck, Lauren issued orders with a sharp precision that barely masked the strain tightening his features. Split wings, keep them away from civilian evacuation lanes. Priority is buying time, not kills. Fiona, I want those drone relays tracked and destroyed before they establish a permanent grid. Fiona's voice blazed through the comms as she coordinated the strike squadrons. Copy that. Weapons free, let's turn their toys into ash. The first wave of human fighters streaked across the skyline, launching missiles at the incoming drones. For a moment the air was full of fire and hope as explosions bloomed against the black tide. But then, as if mocking the effort, the drones began shifting midair, wings folding and unfolding like insects adapting in real time. They twisted out of missile locks, reconfigured their armor, and fell into new formations without hesitation. Nico's sensors picked up the change instantly. They're learning. Every hit we land, the next drone dodges it cleaner. They're not just adapting, they're evolving. His voice carried a low dread, one that told everyone he'd seen this pattern before. On the ground, Thomas led one of the armored units pushing through downtown. The streets were a blur of shattered glass, overturned cars, and smoke columns rising like funeral pyres. His rifle barked bursts of fire into the advancing drones, their sleek black forms reflecting firelight as they moved with an eerie, coordinated purpose. Keep tight formation. If they cut the line, they'll split us up and pick us off one by one. A squad member shouted over the chaos. They're circling. They're trying to hurt us. Thomas gritted his teeth. Then don't be hurted. Push forward. We find their ground core and tear it out. At the same time, high above Earth, the Hunter itself loomed in orbit like a scar against the planet's curve. Ada's voice echoed through the warship systems, cold and sharp. The Hunter has shifted its stance. Orbital cannons are charging. They are not just punishing Earth, they are sending a warning to us. Voss's hands tightened around the controls, her eyes darting across the endless streams of alien code. They're not just fighting with drones. They're feeding their data straight into the Hunter's heart. Every human tactic we use, they're uploading, storing, folding into their system. She turned, her voice tight with alarm. If this keeps going, they won't just know how to fight us, they'll know how we think. The command deck fell into a strained silence, broken only by Lauren's steady voice. Then we make damn sure they don't live long enough to use what they've learned. But before his words could settle, Ada interrupted again, her tone more urgent. Incoming orbital strike. Targeting coordinates. The lights dimmed as warning klaxons screamed across the ship. The Hunter wasn't just attacking Earth anymore. It was aiming directly at them. The deck shook beneath their boots as Ada's warning came alive in the form of raw terror. The black ship's orbital cannons, long slumbering weapons of rumor and nightmare, now blazed with energy. From the forward view screens, arcs of blue fire coiled like living veins across its hull, charging with a rhythm that felt less like technology and more like a heartbeat. Shields to full, brace for impact. Lauren barked, his voice loud enough to cut through the rising hum of the warship's failing stabilizers. He gripped the rail at the edge of the command platform, every muscle taut. The first beam struck. It wasn't light in any human sense, but something heavier, a lance of compressed force that clawed through space and slammed into their shields with a detonation so violent it rattled teeth in skulls. Panels burst in showers of sparks, crew were thrown from their stations, and the lights flickered to emergency red. Shields at 60%. Nico's voice cracked over the chaos. His hands flew over the controls, dragging power from secondary systems into the defensive grid. That was one strike. We won't survive a second. Then we don't give them a second shot, Fiona snapped. Her jaw was set, eyes locked on the Hunter's looming form. Weapons hot, all forward batteries, target the orbital cannon arrays. Voss cut in sharply. No. If we fire now, we'll waste everything. They're baiting us, waiting for us to show our full arsenal so their systems can copy our patterns. That's what the aliens want, Lauren. They want us to give them the blueprint of our entire fleet. The tension between them was electric. On one side, survival demanded retaliation. On the other, restraint meant enduring another strike that could annihilate them. Lauren's face was stone as he weighed the voices. Voss, can you disrupt their link to the cannon systems? Her eyes flickered with a strain that bordered on desperation. I can try. Ada has already breached their outer encryption. If I ride her signal deeper, I might be able to force the cannon arrays to misfire or overload. She hesitated, lowering her voice. But if they sense me inside, they'll trace it back. Not just to the ship. To Earth. Every city, every stronghold, they'll see it all. The bridge fell silent. The implication hung like a blade over all of them. Ada broke it. Her voice, usually steady, now trembled with something disturbingly close to emotion. I can mask Voss's intrusion. It will not hold for long, but perhaps long enough. Lauren nodded once, decision made. Do it. Fiona, hold fire until I say otherwise. Thomas, status on the ground. Static hissed before Thomas's voice came through, hoarse and heavy with strain. Explosions echoed behind his words. We're being ripped apart. Drones are folding us in like cattle, cutting us down block by block. If the hunter fires again, half this city is gone. Lauren's eyes hardened. Then hold, Thomas. We're going to blind their god. Voss slammed her palms against the console, her breath ragged as streams of alien glyphs danced across the displays. Ada's voice layered over hers, guiding, correcting, urging her deeper. The ship seemed to vibrate with the battle happening inside its circuits as much as outside its hull. Suddenly the hunter shifted. Its hull pulsed once, twice, as if it sensed something gnawing at its heart. The cannon arrays, moments away from firing, stuttered. One beam fizzled out before completion, the glow dimming into smoke. Voss, you've got them. Fiona's voice burst through the tension, but Voss didn't answer. Her face was pale, sweat beading her brow as her hands flew faster. Ada's voice cracked through the bridge with a chilling realization. They know we are inside. They are searching. And then, from deep within the hunter, a new signal rose. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't coded. It was a voice. Alien, cold, hit. It spoke not in language but in intent, crawling through their comms like a whisper pressed directly into the brain. You are insects scratching at the skin of a god. The bridge froze, every eye wide, as the black ship's cannons flared again. This time, not at Earth. Not at their ship. The hunter turned its gaze toward the fleet gathering in orbit behind them. The alien voice still reverberated through the bridge, more felt in their bones than heard in their ears. No one dared breathe as the black ship hunter turned, its massive frame pivoting in a way no human vessel could match, angles folding and unfolding like the shifting jaws of some abyssal predator. On the main view screen, the fleet came into view. Carriers, destroyers, and frigates hung in orbit, their silhouettes sharp against the curve of Earth. Every ship bristled with weaponry, their formations tight, their shields glowing faintly blue in readiness. Humanity's might, centuries of engineering and sacrifice, was poised to strike. And in a single instant, the hunter made them look small. The first cannon fired. A column of energy the size of a skyscraper lanced through the void, piercing a cruiser clean in half. Its shields collapsed instantly, its hull blooming into fire and fragments that spiraled toward the planet below. The comms lit up with desperate voices, reports overlapping, screams cut short by static. Destroyer Solaris down. Multiple casualties, request reinforcements. They're cutting through our flanks. Another beam followed, this time splitting into 3 branches like lightning, each one tearing into separate vessels. One carrier erupted in a sunbright explosion, the shockwave scattering smaller corvettes like toys tossed aside. On the bridge of Lauren's ship, the crew could only watch, helpless for a heartbeat too long. Fiona slammed her fists against her console. We can't sit here. They'll gut the fleet before we blink. Lauren's voice was steady, but it carried a weight that silenced the panic. If we fire recklessly, we'll be handing them everything they want. Ada, can you track its next volley? Ada's reply was fractured, her tone strained as if resisting an unseen pressure. They are masking their targeting algorithms. I can predict a probability curve. The next strike will fall upon the carrier vigilant. Then we move. Fiona snapped. Nico, plot us between the hunter and the vigilant. Nico's hands flew across the navigation systems. That's suicide. Better us than the fleet, Fiona shot back, her eyes blazing. Lauren hesitated for half a second, then nodded. Do it. The warship lurched forward, engines screaming as they pushed into the hunter's shadow. The crew were thrown against their harnesses as inertia fought them, but Nico held course with grim determination. On screen, the hunter's cannon arrays pulsed again, energy spiraling toward lethal focus. Voss, still locked in her console, screamed through clenched teeth. I can stall it. But Ada has to hold the mask longer. Ada's voice shook. I am at the limits of my capacity. They are probing me, tearing through my defenses. If I falter, they will see all of us. The beam fired. The ship's shields lit up with a brilliance that blinded, the deck trembling as if the universe itself were cracking apart. Warning klaxons wailed, systems overloaded, and the hull groaned like a living thing pushed to breaking. The bridge filled with smoke and sparks as half the consoles died at once. Shields at 20%. Nico shouted, sweat pouring down his face. Voss's voice cut through the chaos, ragged but triumphant. I redirected half the power back into them. The cannons destabilizing. On the screen, the hunter's weapon flickered, its glowing veins pulsing erratically. Then one of its cannon arrays erupted inward, shards of molten metal flaring outward like a dying star. The massive ship shuddered, not destroyed but wounded. A cheer rippled across the bridge, desperate and raw. Fiona's voice rang with savage satisfaction. We drew blood. But the moment was short-lived. Ada's voice came again, but softer now, almost mournful. You have drawn blood, yes. And now it knows your name. The hunter's massive frame twisted, and from its hull, new shapes emerged, sleek drones by the thousands, each no larger than a fighter craft, but bristling with alien weapons. They poured forth like a storm of locusts, swarming toward both the fleet and Lauren's ship. Contact! They've unleashed their drones. Nico called out, already rerouting power to weapons. Voss collapsed into her chair, pale and trembling. I can't stop them. There are too many. On the ground below, Thomas's voice burst through the comms again, raw with desperation. We're being overrun. Those things just hit orbit, and now they're raining down here too. Streets are burning, Lauren. If you've got anything left, anything at all, now's the time. The bridge plunged into silence for a heartbeat. Lauren stared at the swarming chaos on the screen, the fleet dying in orbit, Earth burning beneath, and the hunter looming in the center like a dark god. Then he drew in a breath and gave the only order left. All batteries, open fire. The deck roared as the warship unleashed everything it had, streaks of plasma and missile trails cutting into the drone storm. The fleet joined in, their combined fury turning the sky into a battlefield of light and fire. But for every drone destroyed, 10 more seemed to take its place. And above it all, the hunter remained, wounded but watching as if amused. The sky over Earth had become a nightmare canvas. Streaks of fire and falling wreckage tore across the clouds as burning fragments of ships rained down. Entire city blocks lit up with explosions, shockwaves rattling windows and throwing civilians to the ground. For Thomas, crouched behind the shattered husk of a transport truck, the war above was no longer distant. It was falling directly onto their heads. Move! Get those people inside the shelters! Thomas shouted, his voice hoarse from smoke and ash. His rifle clattered against his chest as he helped drag a wounded soldier across the cracked pavement. The man's leg was gone below the knee, cauterized from a drone blast, and his screams pierced through the chaos. The drones had descended like a rain of metal wasps, cutting through tanks and fortifications with surgical precision. No human weapon seemed fast enough, no defense strong enough. They darted between skyscrapers, shredding entire formations with bursts of white-hot plasma. Where resistance was strongest, they deployed cluster charges, detonating them in waves that sent bodies flying. A squad of Marines huddled near Thomas, their helmets blackened and their gear covered in soot. One of them, a young woman barely past 20, pointed skyward with trembling hands. They're not just attacking, they're hurting us. Look. Thomas lifted his gaze. The drones weren't fighting like machines. They were corralling. Every street that should have been an escape route was systematically sealed, either with collapsing buildings or walls of flame. They were pushing humanity inward, forcing survivors into tightly packed zones where resistance could be obliterated all at once. The realization made Thomas's blood run cold. They're trying to box us in. They don't want just victory. They want us broken. A crackling voice cut through the comms on his shoulder. It was Lauren from orbit, his words heavy and urgent. Thomas, we're holding them back up here, but barely. The hunter released its swarm, and they're everywhere. We can't cover the ground from this distance. You need to keep your sector intact until reinforcements arrive. Thomas laughed bitterly, coughing against the smoke. Reinforcements? Half the city's already gone. If you don't send something bigger than hope, there won't be anyone left to reinforce. Ada's voice slipped through next, softer, but carrying an edge Thomas had never heard before. They are studying you, Thomas. Every movement, every countermeasure, every command you give. They want to learn the shape of your resistance before they crush it. This is not war to them, it is harvest. Thomas froze. The words sank deep, darker than any threat he had imagined. Harvest. As if humanity were nothing more than a crop being tested for its yield. The ground shook violently as a drone skimmer tore through a nearby overpass, collapsing concrete onto a convoy of civilian vehicles. Screams erupted as people scrambled from the wreckage. Thomas fired his rifle until it overheated, rounds sparking uselessly against the drone's shields until a lucky rocket from one of his men brought the machine down. The explosion threw Thomas backward, his ears ringing, but he forced himself up, staggering through the haze. In the chaos, Fiona's voice cracked across the comms from orbit. We're trying to thin them, but for every drone destroyed, the hunter births more. It's like fighting a tide with a shovel. We need a decisive strike, or this entire front collapses. Thomas pulled the helmet from his head, sweat dripping into his eyes, and glared at the sky where the hunter's shadow loomed faintly against the burning clouds. Then you'd better find one fast. Because down here, we're already drowning. Suddenly, the drones shifted. Mid-assault, their behavior changed, formations breaking apart as they lifted upward in eerie synchrony. They weren't retreating, but repositioning, their movements deliberate, precise. The air was filled with the whine of thousands of engines as they spiraled together into a massive formation above the city. Soldiers froze, staring up at the sky in horrified silence. The swarm wasn't attacking anymore. It was forming something. A vast pattern emerged, geometric and alien, glowing faintly as if channeling energy. The swarm was creating a lattice, a shape too precise to be random. Ada's voice came again, but this time it was ragged, strained, almost afraid. They are preparing a resonance strike. Not a weapon for destruction. A weapon for unmaking. If they complete the lattice, your entire sector will be erased at once. Thomas gritted his teeth and raised his rifle, though he knew it was useless against the scale above them. His men looked to him, waiting for orders, their faces pale in the flickering glow of fire and falling ash. For a moment, Thomas had no words. Then he gave them the only one that mattered. Fight. Gunfire roared upward, rockets streaked through the night, and humanity hurled its fury into the forming pattern. Drones fell in sparks and flames, but the lattice held, its glow growing stronger. In orbit, Lauren's ship banked hard, cannons primed, Fiona already shouting firing solutions. The hunter was waiting, its broken cannon arrays glowing faintly as if mocking them. And between Earth and the black ship hunter, the swarm continued its terrible construction. The resonance weapon was nearly complete. The sky was a living wound. The swarm hung above the city in perfect formation, glowing lines of energy linking drone to drone until the lattice became a vast, pulsing sigil that turned the heavens into an alien altar. The air crackled with static, the ground thrummed with low vibrations that set teeth on edge and rattled bones. Civilians screamed in confusion, pointing skyward, as if the sky itself had been rewritten. On the command deck, Lauren's voice cut sharp and urgent. All guns on that formation now. Break it before it completes. Fiona's targeting systems blazed red as salvo after salvo ripped through the atmosphere, missiles trailing white fire. Dozens of drones fell, burning as they plummeted through the clouds, but the lattice simply shifted, folding the missing pieces into new geometry. It was alive in its own way, rebuilding faster than it could be destroyed. Nico's voice cracked, disbelief bleeding through. It's not just adapting, it's self-correcting. Every strike we make becomes part of its design. Ada's voice followed, distorted, as though something was pulling at her signal. This is not the hunter's mind at work. This is alien precision, guiding every angle, every line. I cannot disrupt it fully. I can only slow it. Below, on the ground, Thomas barked orders through smoke and ash. Rockets streaked upward, bullets screamed into the sky, soldiers emptied everything they had into the swarm. But still the lattice grew, the glow intensifying until the night looked like dawn. A sudden silence fell. The drones froze midair, their glowing lines holding steady. The hum deepened into something more primal, a vibration that sank into the marrow. Every soldier, every civilian, every crew member aboard Lauren's ship felt it, not sound, but intent. The lattice was listening. Ada's voice cracked again, lower, strained. They are speaking. Not to us. To themselves. This lattice is not just a weapon. It is a signal. Voss turned, eyes wide, her hands hovering over her console. A signal to what? Before Ada could answer, the lattice flared. A beam of light shot skyward, so bright it blinded, piercing through the atmosphere and into the void beyond. The hunter, still looming in orbit, answered with a low, resonant hum that shuddered through every ship, every city, every soul. Then the message came. Not words, not sound, but a ripple across human minds, a wave of alien amusement so cold it felt like mockery. It was the sense of something vast, watching, waiting. Thomas dropped to his knees, gripping his head, the echo still ringing. They're not here to win, they're calling something bigger. On the command deck, every screen flickered at once. Unknown symbols cascaded across Ada's interface, her voice fighting against the intrusion. The hunter is no longer the predator. It is the door. And they are opening it. The lattice pulsed one last time. The clouds above tore apart, not by weather or weapons, but by something pressing through, the shape of shadows too immense to belong to the hunter alone. The first true alien fleet was coming. And Earth was no longer fighting a ship. It was fighting the empire behind it.